Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today's going to be a palette declutter video. I have been talking about making this video for a while now. I have a whole bunch of eyeshadow palettes and I wanted to just go through my drawer, which was completely overflowing, and just declutter everything. So first off, I have these. These are the MUA Professional Makeup Academy palettes. I bought these and this was when MUA, the brand, first came to CVS, and I was really interested, so I bought these two. This one is the metallic eyeshadow palette. It looks like this. And then this other one is called the Smoky Eyeshadow Palette, and this is what it looks like. So right away you can see that out of the two, I do use this one a great deal more often. This one I'm not really I like some of the eyeshadows, but this one, for instance, and this one over here, these are two shadows that kind of like attracted me to this palette in the first place, and they don't really work as well as I want them to. And just in general, like some of these shades here, I just don't like this palette, and I'm not going to keep it just for some of the shades in this palette that I like. I like these shades, but I'm not going to keep it just for that, so I'm just going to get rid of it because I do not need this. So I'll be giving this to a friend or my sister. So then moving on to this one is one I am keeping. I have managed to dig quite deep into this green shade. I really do like it a lot. This shade is also one of my favorites. The one shade in this palette that I do not like whatsoever is this shade right here. I just have a hard time working with it. So I will be keeping this just because I know I already use it quite often, so I know I'll be getting my use out of it. So this one I'm keeping. This one I'm getting rid of. Alright, some palettes that I know I am keeping are my Juvia's Place palettes. I have 3 so far and I use them a lot. These are my most used palettes. I'm pretty sure these are my most used palettes. I have the Magic palette by Juvia's Place. This is what it looks like if you haven't seen it. It is absolutely beautiful. I think it's amazing. I use these shades a ton, and yeah, this is like one of my go-tos. And then my favorite palette possibly ever is the Masquerade by Juvia's Place. Just look at how beautiful it is. You get all these beautiful bright colors, and they have some neutrals there, but all these colors are so beautiful, so pigmented, so amazing. I have done videos featuring pretty much all of these many times, and there have been tutorials and reviews and favorites videos, and if you want to see a video featuring these palettes or really any of these palettes, just go to my channel and type in the search bar the name of the palette or the name of the brand, and I think something will come up. But I know that for certain I have done many videos with these palettes. And then I have the Saharan palette also. I think I almost forgot to mention this. This is really nice too. It has some beautiful colors in here. I specifically really gravitate towards these two colors quite a bit. Those are my two most used colors in this palette just because I love like how creamy and how pigmented they are, and in general, like, these are some really amazing palettes that I don't think I will ever get rid of. So these are amazing. I love them. I'm keeping them. Some other palettes that I'm keeping are the Kat Von D Shade and Light Eye Quads. I think these got discontinued, and I think it's because they weren't really getting sold that much. Like, not a lot of people were buying them, and that really confuses me because these are seriously some of the best mattes I've tried. These are amazing. The two palettes that I have are the Plum one and the Smoky one. So these are what they look like. This one is the one I use most often. This is the Smoky one, and it's the most beautiful thing ever. I specifically love this shade right here because I feel like it really makes my brown eyes pop, and I feel like if you wear this palette or these similar tones with practically any eye color, it will make your eyes pop. So these are great. I am keeping both of these. I use them a ton and I love them. One that I'm not keeping though is the Sonia Kashuk palette right here. This is called the Precious Gems palette. I bought this because like these colors looked so incredibly beautiful, and I mean, like, if you look at these in the pan, they look absolutely amazing, but they swatch terribly. Like, let me show you. I mean, I wasn't planning on doing many swatches, but like, what is that? And like, this is how it was when I bought it, you know, and even when it's wet, it still looks bad. So this, I don't know why I've been keeping this, but this is going. no, I don't like it. This is another palette that I absolutely love. This is the Dose of Colors Blush and Berries palette. This has 5 mattes and they're all really purpley colors. This is what it looks like. I use this palette a ton and I like it because you can pretty much mix and match this with any palette you want. This is a palette that I was definitely drawn to and I'm very happy to say that I do use it a ton, so I will be keeping this. This is not available anymore, which really sucks, but this is the Estee Edit Gritty and Glow eyeshadow palette duo. You have this beautiful selection of like some of the creamiest eyeshadows ever. This shade right here is absolutely stunning. I just love this entire palette so much and I still bust it out and use it, but I can't really use it on camera anymore because it is discontinued because I think the brand went out of business, which really sucks. Then I have another older palette. This is the Skylark by Ellen Blair Fowler Snow-Kissed Cashmere palette. This is an old one. If you saw my reaction to my like deleted videos, my old deleted videos, I showed this palette in that video because I actually did a review on this palette years ago when I was first trying YouTube, and I mean, it's just, okay, it's something that I never ever use because it's probably like way past expiration date. It's like disgusting, but it's just something that's just so sentimental to me. Like I actually won this in contest and I remember I was such a fan of Ellen Blair Fowler, if you remember them. They're kind of like not been on YouTube as much recently because, I mean, everyone moves on, but they kind of were like my idols when I was like 12 or 11 or something, and then I got this when I won a contest that they had and they autographed it and I was so excited. It was like the best day ever. I loved it. So out of sentimentality, I am keeping this. So this is something that if you love colorful makeup, you will really like. This is the Sleek Makeup Eye Divine Snapshots palette, and this is like your ultimate colorful makeup palette. It is beautiful and you have a lot of colors in here. All these shades are really nice and creamy. There are a few shades in here, if I'm being very honest, that I find a little bit iffy. This one is one of them. I just don't like it as much. I don't really use it, but pretty much every other shade in here that I've worked with, I really have been loving. I mean, the only 2 shades that I really don't use that much are these 2, and that's just because like they're kind of neutrals in a really colorful palette. But other than that, this is a really great palette, and if you love colorful makeup, you will love this palette. So this is an amazing one. I am keeping this. I do use this quite a bit. Morphe 350. It's fallen apart completely because Morphe's packaging kind of sucks, but this is what it looks like. This was so hyped up, like incredibly hyped up by like every person on YouTube, and it was sold out so many times. I believe you can still buy it. They have like a Morphe 350 matte now. They have a Morphe 350 shimmer. They have a Morphe 350 2. I just have the original. It's just really all you need. I mean, these are pretty much like all the warm toned eyeshadows you need. I'm keeping this because the shadows are good. I still use it a lot. I especially love this color right here. It is really beautiful, but I do have to like get this into a Z palette at some point because this is ridiculous. Singles palette, definitely keeping this. These are all my eyeshadow singles. I mean, I have a few more, but these are like the bulk of my eyeshadow singles, and I love like just how colorful it is, and I love going in here and sometimes like trying out a few shades. I really should use this more often. The Jaclyn Hill palette. This is the old packaging. I love Jaclyn Hill, but please, you could have made the packaging better the first time. But this is one of my favorite palettes and I absolutely love it. The quality of these eyeshadows is amazing. They're creamy, they're buttery. It is a lot better than the Morphe 350. Jaclyn Hill did an amazing job with this palette. She really included her warm tones, but then she also has a few cool tones and some pops of color here. But I use this palette constantly. I have basically butchered this. This is an amazing palette and I will definitely be keeping this. This is amazing. This palette was one that I was wrestling with quite a bit because this is an Urban Decay Naked 2 Basics. No one uses this anymore. I feel like there's a lot of duality in this because I can use these 2 shades for my brows, and I have used them for my brows quite a bit. If I don't use it more, if I don't start using it more, I will get rid of it. I will give it to a friend, but as of now I'm looking at this and I'm like, I probably should be using it more. There are things I could use it for, and I just feel like it's a nice collection of mattes, and I feel like I would be using these shades more now that I've sort of like gone through my makeup collection and sort of reintroduced myself to these palettes. But if I don't use this more, I will get rid of it. This one is one I actually didn't use for quite some time, but then I did a tutorial on it and I fell back in love with it again. This is the Stila Eyes of the Window Shadow palette in the shade combination Soul. This is what it looks like. It is absolutely very pretty. The metallics are really nice, and even though the mattes swatch kind of like choppy, if you work with them with your eyeshadow, they will look good. But the metallics are definitely the standouts. I feel like this is a palette that I won't recommend because I feel like right now there's so many other palettes that are tons better than this palette. But since I do have this palette and since I do like using it, I will be keeping it. So I have a ton of the Wet n Wild palettes. These are the Color Icon palettes, and I have Comfort Zone, I have Not a Basic Peach, and then I have Nude Awakening. I did a video on Comfort Zone, and that was comparing it with the old Comfort Zone palette with this one. And I will link that. Well, I don't know if I have enough space in the cards to link it, but it is on my channel. And I basically compared it to that palette, and yes, this is better. Overall, it is better. And I will be keeping this because I do really like this palette. But I do like these a lot better, just to be honest with you. I use these a ton. I especially love these two colors right here. They're absolutely beautiful. This one, however, is one that I seriously absolutely adore. I wear this all the time, and I've done a lot of smoky eyes with this. The mattes here are really, really pigmented, in case you don't know. They are really pigmented. They're just a few dollars at the drugstore, and you really get a collection of good quality, creamy shadows that stay on really well and just blend really well and perform really, really well. Clearly, I need some new vocabulary. But overall, I will be keeping these. I still use these a lot, and I still like them. This one was one that I was thinking of getting rid of, but then I actually like tried using it again, and I was experimenting with it, and I decided that it would be a good idea to keep it. This is the Icon eyeshadow palette, and this is in the shade combination Twilight. This is what it looks like. It has like all these beautiful metallic shades. The only shades I don't like in this palette, and I know this because I've been very like thorough with using it, are these two shades. The rest I really like a lot. I especially love this area right here. These are some beautiful colors. So yes, I will be keeping this. I'm actually wearing a combination of these two shades in my inner corner today. I really like this palette a lot. The mirror is kind of falling out though. Another one that I have is the KTW and Mario palette. This one, it looks kind of dirty because I do use it a lot. I actually wore it on my eyes today. I wore the blue, and then I wore a combination of these three shades as well. These are some really beautiful shades. Something that really stands out to me about this palette is just how blendable these shades are. They are really, really blendable. Some of the most blendable eyeshadows I own. They are really easy to work with. I really like them a lot, and I just think that this is a really nice palette. I really like it a lot. Some people might find it boring, and that's okay, but I use this palette a ton and I really enjoy it, so I will be keeping this. This palette, oh boy, we have been on a journey. We have been on a journey with this palette. This is a Makeup Revolution Ultra eyeshadow palette with 32 shades, and you can see that I have beat this sucker up. I have used this palette many, many times because this palette frustrates me. And I mean, this is, you can see that I have really dug into this. This palette frustrates me because I go through phases where I have liked this palette and then I have not liked this palette. Right now, I'm in the phase where I like this palette because the metallics in this palette are actually really nice. And if you use a wet brush with these colors, or if you just apply them with your fingers, they are absolutely amazing. My favorite shades in this palette are definitely this shade, this shade, this shade, and I feel like, yeah, this shade as well. These are some really beautiful colors, and they work really well, but they just require a lot of work. So that's why I say I will not recommend this palette, but I do like the shades in here, and I do use it with a wet brush. So I will be keeping this because I do find myself using it. As you can see, I do use it a ton, but would I recommend it? No. Just buy Juvia's Place palette. You will it'll be a lot better for you. This is so sentimental. This is the Kat Von D Shade and Light Eye Palette. Okay, when I first bought this palette, I was so excited. I loved this thing so much, and I still do. I mean, even though it's like completely worn off the back, I've used this palette so many times over the years. It is really good. I think my favorite, like my most used quad is this one right here. Like this middle one, like these 3 shades in this one right here. You get a lot of beautiful matte shades in this palette. It was meant to be like a shade and light contouring palette, but for the eyes. I think that's what it was marketed for. And it's still available. You can still buy it. It is still a standout palette. They have changed the packaging though a little bit. However, do have to say, if you are someone who already has like a whole bunch of makeup palettes and you're kind of like a makeup connoisseur, if you will, and you're looking at this palette and you're like, should I get this, should I not? My recommendation would be no, because back when this palette first came out, there was really no eyeshadow palette that had all of these shades in one, and it was really hard to find a good quality eyeshadow palette with matte colors, for me anyway, and I think for a lot of other people. So when this palette came out, it was kind of revolutionary in the sense that it was a basic palette, it was a matte palette, and it was incredibly good quality. So this was really popular, I feel like, for that very reason, because it was such a really standout palette. It had good quality, the shades were right, and everyone could use it, and everyone kind of like could use it a lot in their collection. However, now I feel like you have so many different other eyeshadow palettes that have matte shades in them that are pretty much exactly like these. None of these shades are really unique per se. So really, like, in my opinion, if I was looking at this palette right now today, and if I hadn't bought this palette then and I'll be trying to buy it now, I really wouldn't buy this palette in the end, because this is so typical for now, but back then it was so different. I am keeping this because I still find ways to use it, and it's still a really good palette. But would I recommend it? No, because you do not need it in your life right now, because right now we have come such a long way with makeup that we no longer need a very basic palette with some very neutral mattes. These shades can be found in virtually any other eyeshadow palette, and it's not really difficult to find shades like these and other eyeshadow palettes. I was wrestling with this. I was like, should I get rid of these? Should I not get rid of these? These are the LORAC Pros. This is a 1 and this is a 2. Okay, I did a tutorial a while ago on this one where I was kind of like reintroducing myself to it, and I really liked it a lot. It's a good palette. There's nothing really wrong with it. I especially love these bottom shimmers. I feel like this shade especially is one that I don't have duplicates of in my collection, and these like shades in general, they're so creamy, so beautiful, so blendable. So I will be keeping this because I really like it a lot. Will I get rid of it eventually? Probably yes, but for now I am keeping it. This palette right now, just looking at it, I don't use it that much, but it's sentimental to me, and I know a lot of people hate hearing the word sentimental, especially when it's attached to makeup, but it's sentimental to me because this was the first higher-end palette that I ever got. I think even my dad actually bought this for me because I didn't even buy it for myself because like I was that young. So this for me is just, it's such a sentimental piece because this reminds me, like just holding it reminds me of how happy it felt when I first got this like amazing palette. I will get rid of these palettes one day, but not today. So these are staying. I was looking through my collection and I was like, I need to get another Z palette because there are palettes in my collection, and this is about to be one of them, that have some like 1 or 2 really great shades, but then the rest of the shades are absolutely, I can't use them, I don't like them, I don't want to use them. So this is one of those palettes, so I'm keeping this until I get another Z palette. And this is a LORAC Unzipped Gold palette, and I mean, okay, see, I like these shades, these 2 shades, and maybe this one, and maybe that one. But the rest of these shades are so difficult to use. But then, like, again, this Unleashed color is just like, I'm gonna swatch it for you. That's just a little bit, like, that's not even touching it that much. And then this is serious. Like, this is I was like, this is serious. This is serious. This is like some serious pigmentation right here. And I love this color so much and I love working with it. So I do bust this palette out specifically for this color right here and sometimes this color. But do I like any of the other shades in this palette? No, I do not. So that's why I want to get a Z palette, because I just feel like there are some palettes that I own that I want to keep like one shade from it, and then the other shades I do not have any use for. So I will be keeping this until I get a Z palette, but when that happens, I will be getting rid of this palette and keeping those two shades. So then I have a whole bunch of Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadows. For a while, I was like, I'm collecting Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow palettes. And no, well, really that's not true right now, because this is missing the Soft Glam and the Prism palette, both of which I'm not getting because the Prism palette was limited edition and it would not have been worth it for me in the long run. And the Soft Glam palette was pretty much a palette full of duplicates of eyeshadows I already owned, so I didn't think it was worth it. So these are some palettes that I love, and I'm keeping all of them because I use all of them. I can honestly tell you that I use all of them. The Modern Renaissance is a classic. I have absolutely been loving this palette. It's absolutely gorgeous. I use these shades and this shade a ton. I also love this one. I use these two colors a lot, but then again, I use pretty much almost every single color in this palette a ton, and the only shade I really haven't used that much is this color. That's it. I've used all the other shades in here and I love them so much, so I will be keeping this. Then I have the Anastasia Beverly Hills, what is this called? The Shadow Couture World Traveler palette. I keep this because it has pink champagne in it, it has Morocco, and it has fudge, which are single shadows that Anastasia Beverly Hills offers, but then I don't have. I just have them in this palette, so that's why I keep this palette. And then a whole bunch of the other shades, like these two shades, this shade as well, this shade, are shades that I absolutely love and I continue to use. So this is a palette that I absolutely love. So I keep this palette because of those shades and because I still really like those. Would you please shut up?
Several days later.
This is another really beautiful palette that I absolutely love. This shade Deep Purple is one that I wish that they would come out with in a single format. I kind of thought that they did, but apparently they did not. But this shade Pink Champagne, also one of my favorites. Pink Champagne is pretty much like my favorite Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow, if you haven't already guessed. But these other shades are really beautiful. I use them a lot. They're really interesting shades, and I feel like I reached for this palette, so I still will be keeping this because I really like it. And then Subculture, I mean, it's one of my favorites. It really is. I mean, people don't like it, but I love it. It is really beautiful. You have a lot of really interesting shades. I use this shade a lot. This is the shade called Electric. It's really nice. I'm not sure if you can see it very clearly. But yeah, people tend to have like a love-hate relationship with it. It's very polarizing. I, however, really like it. And then last but not least, we have the Master Palette by Mario. I keep this palette because, not just out of sentimentality, it's more because these eyeshadows are really, really good, and I wish that they'd come out with this palette again so I could use it more on my channel, but they haven't because it was limited edition. It's fine, I understand, but this palette is absolutely beautiful. You have some really great shades in here. I love the shimmery shades. The matte shades are really beautiful as well. So this is a really nice palette. I am keeping this. So yes, I'm keeping all of Anastasia palettes. This is an e.l.f. palette. Let me open you up. This is what it looks like right here. It has 10 matte shades in it, and this is an absolutely beautiful palette. It is really, really good. If you're looking for a basic matte palette, this one is a really great one. So I do have some old Wet n Wild eyeshadow palettes. This one is an example of an eyeshadow palette that I like one color in and I want to keep it for that one color. This is what that one color is. It's a really beautiful icy lavender color that I still like to use on my inner corners sometimes. But this palette is discontinued, so I feel like I will keep this for that one color and I'll depot it and then I'll get rid of this palette entirely. This palette I definitely am getting rid of. This is the old Comfort Zone palette, the one that they had before they made the update, and I already have like a better version of it, so I'm getting rid of this. I'm also getting rid of this LORAC eyeshadow palette that I actually got from Amazon. For a while I was getting a lot of my makeup from Amazon because they really have some inexpensive options that tend to be really good, but this one is one that I liked at the time, but now I'm like looking at it and I'm like, boring. I don't find myself gravitating towards this at all. I don't like it. It's an okay palette. It's supposed to be like an eye cheek palette. I mean, it's just not really, it doesn't really appeal to me. So I am going to be passing this on. I do not need it. Then this palette, this one is one that I was wrestling with quite a bit because when I first bought this palette, I absolutely loved it because these shades are not as the most pigmented shadows in the world, but they are so incredibly blendable and so easy to work with. I could create any look with this and not one of those looks would turn out bad because this palette was that easy to use. So if you're a beginner, if you have not owned makeup before, I guess, this is a really nice drugstore option. This one and the e.l.f. one are really great, but the e.l.f. one has all mattes. This has some shimmers in it. I, however, will be passing this on. I no longer need it. I have so many other palettes that are very similar to this, and I just don't feel like it's a good idea for me to keep this palette. I have these W7 palettes. I got these palettes because they were advertising them as a dupes for the Naked palettes. I believe that this one right here is like a very close dupe, if I can open it, to the Naked 2 Basics. It's a similar layout if you look at these. It's very similar. So I was like, oh yeah, let's do a dupes video. I never did the dupes video. I mean they're very like they are dupes, but these palettes are so bulky. They're so like, you know, like they're so big, and I don't think it's worth it to keep these. So this one, by the way, I just want to show you guys what's inside these. This one is the other one. This one I believe is really close to the Naked 1 Basics. These shadows are good, okay, but I mean I've never used them, so I don't think I'll start, so I don't need them. This one is a nice palette to get if you like the looks of the Naked 2 and you want to get a similar palette. These shades are really similar in my opinion. The color story is similar. However, I only used it like about 5 to 8 times. That's not enough to use it. That's not enough to keep a palette. And the palette, but like I said, it's just so bulky and like the packaging is so weird, and I don't find myself reaching for this, and I don't honestly think I will. Okay, so this one is one that you might be surprised about. This is a Too Faced Chocolate Bonbons palette, and I'm getting rid of this because, well, not necessarily because I kind of stopped using Too Faced, but also because I just don't gravitate towards this palette, like, at all. Like, seriously, it's a collection of really neutral colors broken in with like a few pops of color here and here and here. But do I use this palette? No. Is it kind of cool that it's chocolate scented and I mean it has a cute packaging? Yeah, it is. But I'm not going to be using this palette. I don't feel inspired by this palette, like, at all, so I don't see the need to keep it. So this was why I'm passing this palette on to someone who wants it more than me. This is the Urban Decay Naked Smoky palette. This one was one that I was thinking of getting rid of, but then I was like, I do think that there are some shades in here that I do not have duplicates of, which is nice. This shade is one of them, this is another one. Those two shades are shades that I love and that I definitely do not have duplicates of. I also feel like the cool tones are coming back a little bit, so I will be using this palette a lot more in the future, and I just like this palette in general, so I will be keeping this. This I'm getting rid of. This is a Sonia Kashuk Io Neutral Matte Palette. I'm getting rid of this for a few reasons. Well, the first reason is I no longer use it, and the other reason is they don't sell Sonia Kashuk, I think, in stores in the US anymore. I don't know what's up with that, but I remember when this palette was like first like raved about by like all these like YouTube people, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a good palette, so I should go out and buy it. So I bought the palette and I tried it, and I was like, well, I like this palette because other people told me to like this palette. You know what? You know? And that's stupid because I never really liked this palette enough to use it more than a few times, and I just was like trying to like, I assumed that because of these beautiful like older YouTube personalities were saying that it was an amazing palette, then it wasn't that. It was an amazing palette, and maybe I just was using this wrong. I mean, okay, keep in mind, this is like my 15, 16-year-old mindset, you know. So that's why I kept this for so long, but now I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't like it. Like, these shades, like these mattes are so dry, and I really have a hard time working with them, and I just don't use them, and I don't like them. So I'll be passing this on to someone who really probably will like it more than me. I just don't. I don't think it's a good palette. I don't even think it was worth the $20 I first paid for this. I didn't like it enough to use it, so this will be going bye-bye. So I have the Huda Beauty Smoky Obsessions. Do I say that every time I introduce this palette? Do I? But this is a Smoky Obsessions palette. This is a 9-pan tiny eyeshadow palette that is my absolute dream. I love this thing. It is so good. I mean, like, you have pretty much like everything you need for a neutral eyeshadow look, and I use this palette a lot. I did use this palette for my graduation. I was getting ready and I was like, okay, which palette do I want to use? And I just gravitated towards this because this has absolutely everything you need to create a really beautiful neutral look. I mean, I'm fine with reaching for different eyeshadow palettes, but this palette, like, it seriously has like these matte shades. It has a black, it has this nice color for transition, and then it has all these beautiful metallic shades. So if you're looking for like one neutral palette, this one is the one I'd recommend most of all, because like it's neutral but there's still room for fun. So this is a really nice palette. It's really beautiful, really creamy, really pigmented. I absolutely love it, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so I think that was pretty much it for this entire video. I was like, wait, do I have any other palettes? And I was like, oh no, I don't. This is it. As you guys may have already realized if you watch my videos regularly, I am very picky when it comes to what things I buy. Whenever I look at something on the market, I'm always like, will I use this? Is this something I will actually like? Is this a good quality product? Is this worth the money? And that's how I make a purchase. And with that mindset, most of these palettes are palettes that I really like. While I do have some items that I keep for sentimental reasons, the majority, like 99% of my collection, are things that I actually find myself using over and over that I absolutely love. So thank you so much for joining me till the end of this video. This was a long one. I am so sorry, but I wanted to just get into depth with every single item. I wanted to tell you guys my opinions, and I have a lot of palettes. So thank you for joining me till the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.